Welcome to the Micronaut podcast. I am your host, Sergio del Amo. I am here today with Marcos Lobo. Hello, Marcos. How are you?
Hello, Sergio. Happy to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure thing. My name is Marcos Lobo. I'm a tech lead at Nexthink. I've been working at Nexthink since around 6+ years. I started as a senior software engineer, and nowadays I'm working as a tech lead for a couple of teams here in Madrid and also one team in Bangalore.
What does Nexthink do?
That's a very interesting question, Sergio. Nexthink is highlighted because it's delighting customers at work, okay? It's enabling visibility into the detection of issues, real-time alerting, diagnosis, analysis, and also very important automation and remediation. This means that our customers are able to know and understand and actually act based on the information that the Nexthink product provides, meaning that they will save money in the sense of, nowadays you have any issue with your laptop, for example, Outlook or whatever is not working properly, and today you have to open a ticket to your IT department, and there is a ping pong over there going and forward. With Nexthink, that time is dramatically reduced thanks to the amount of information that the Nexthink is able to get to provide to our customers in order for them to solve it, because it's not only capable to get that information but also solve it in an automatic way.
So it's correct me if I understand wrong, so it's a business-to-business company, so you sell to I assume quite big clients, right?
Indeed. Nowadays, even though Nexthink is a Swiss company, nowadays we are in the US market and we are targeting big customers. You can see some of the logos that we have in the nexthink.com webpage. And what we have is our own product, and we say we sell it directly to our customers.
And the product is like a mix of software that you install in the company's computers, but also I assume there is like a cloud component as well.
Exactly, Sergio. Today, of course, we have a small and very, very light component that is installed within the devices of the different of the customers. So from there, we are able to get the information, and after that, we have a stream-based modern cloud-native platform based on microservices architecture that is able to get that information, process it, and offer the information in a web application, actually in a set of web products that Nexthink offers nowadays to our customers.
So in agenda, we actually don't have anything scheduled. That's something that we should schedule probably soon, any training or talk. I wanted to highlight a couple of things. 2 patch versions since we last talked in the podcast. So we released Micronaut 3.8.1 and Micronaut 3.8.2. This is patch version, so upgrades should be seamless. We have also like patch fixes in several modules. Comes to mind, we had an issue with Micronaut security when you had, for example, 2 OpenID clients. So that's fixed. We have a couple of patch versions in servlet as well. I think there are a couple of small fixes in data. So if you are in 3.8, please do upgrade. It could be, as I said, seamless. If you are in 3.7, this is a good opportunity for me to plug 3.8 and check I will include a link to the 3.8 release blog post. We have several nice features we talked into the last podcast episode. I'm not going to repeat myself, but please check it out. I am going to include also a link in the podcast show notes to a talk that I delivered last week in the Kotlin Brighton user group. It was an online talk. It was my first time delivering a talk in Kotlin, and I think it went fine. It was like a 101 talk, so I guess that's my Kotlin level reaches. But Kotlin is quite exciting in Micronaut Framework community. So we see, based on the number of issues and the number of projects generated in Micronaut Launch, that Kotlin is, so Java is the most used language when working with Micronaut, but Kotlin is widely used as well. It is true that Kotlin has some nice features that make Micronaut applications like extremely succinct. So if you want to learn more about Micronaut, whether you know Kotlin or not, I guess that's like a good introductory talk. I wanted to use also the podcast to say it to any Java user group or Kotlin user group or Groovy user group organizers. I am completely available to do any online talk or on-site if I can be there. So we have any topic around Micronaut. We have many modules. So there are whatever the taste of your user group is, whether you want to talk about Micronaut and GraalVM, about Micronaut and Kotlin, Micronaut and Groovy, Micronaut Data, for example, is quite interesting topic as well. Micronaut AWS Lambda, we have like a huge community there, but anything that you can imagine. So we have more than 50 modules. Overwhelming sometimes the number of technologies we integrate with. So if anyone wants to have like an online talk, please reach me out and we'll happily organize that. That's how the talk in the Brighton Kotlin user group happened. I was like just drinking a coffee with the organizer, and he told me like they organized the Kotlin user group, and I say, if you are interested, please let me know. And that happened. Do you have anything else that you would like to call the audience to? Any meetup talk? Do you organize the Asturias?
Yes, actually, I personally organize what is the Cloud Native Asturias, which is an official community group from the CNCNF, the Cloud Native and Computing Foundation. We are like almost 3 years now, actually working on this, providing talks with international people plus people from the region, from Asturias, because our goal there is try to put Asturias in the worldwide technology map. So we're working on that. Actually, we had a couple of meetings and a couple of sessions and talks about Micronaut. People working on this plus cloud things. So yeah, there we are.
Yeah, Micronaut supports all clouds. I would like to say the biggest clouds. We have like some native integrations. We have integration with AWS, with Google Cloud, with Azure, and with Oracle Cloud. So yeah, if you have like a user group as Marcos has, which is like not pure Java, but is like cloud, but you want to see like how can a JVM shop deploy to clouds using Micronaut, please, by all means, shout to us. I can myself or put you in contact with someone from the team, as Marcos said, who can help you organize a talk.
Sure.
Asturias, for those who don't know, is in the north of Spain. Quite beautiful. Really not so hot as the rest of Spain, so it's quite nice to go. I went in the summer, actually, to Asturias.
Indeed. Many people does.
You are based in Madrid right now, Marcos?
Right now, we are based in Madrid. The Nexthink office started in Madrid in 2016. And we started like 5-6 persons in the R&D department, and now we are more than 80 something, almost 100. So yeah, based on Madrid nowadays.
Let's move to talk about Micronaut and Nexthink. How did Nexthink discover Micronaut Framework? How do you started working with the framework?
That's a very interesting story, actually. Our former architect lead, David Nemesasi, based on Lausanne, at some point attended, I think was to the DevOps meeting, something like that, and I think was talking to I think was Grimm.
Yeah, probably.
Exactly. He was doing a talk, as far as I recall, and David from Nexthink saw, okay, this is an interesting topic, this is an interesting framework, and at that time he came to Nexthink and say, hey, we have to start having some kind of framework, like out of the box, like default framework to implement our microservices for this brand new platform that we will start to build right now. And at some point, I remember that also we were discussing about the possibility of having this. I don't recall the other name of the other framework. I think it's supported by Red Hat.
Quarkus, probably.
Quarkus, exactly. So at some point we started, doing some POCs between Micronaut and Quarkus, and at the end of the day we decided to go with Micronaut because we saw it more solid. The amount of integration that the framework had at that time and today, it seems to be very, very interesting, very focused on the cloud, which was one of the main points that we had at that time in the head. After that, there we are.
What was the experience of the people in the company with other frameworks? So were you like people coming from Spring?
Yes.
Or from other frameworks? Or?
Yes, actually, that was one of the reasons, because we were, discussing about Micronaut, Quarkus, because both of them could be, let's say, easily onboarded from people that work in Spring. At the time of hiring, it's very easy. Even though the hiring experience that we have in the last 3-4 years is that, okay, maybe not much people know Micronaut, but they know Spring. So when you show the code and so on and so forth, the onboarding is pretty easy.
Yeah, I think one of the advantages of Micronaut is that so Spring is great and they did many great things.
Mm-hmm.
The core development team of the framework came from the Grails framework. Which since version 3 is built on top of Spring Boot. So we liked many things from Spring, and we didn't want to reinvent the wheel on those things. Coming from Spring, you're going to see that there are some concepts that are basically almost identical. So, the concept of the controller is identical. The annotation is not identical. We use like add controller, but the idea is there. Configuration is quite similar as well. So there are many concepts. So I like to say that if you have experience with Spring, don't be intimidated. This is gonna be like the learning curve for you should be easy. At least that's what we try to achieve. And when learn from the great things that other frameworks have and try to build on top of them. So when was that around? Like when did you start using the framework around?
Let's say I think this started around 18, 19 more or less.
So Micronaut 1 probably.
Yes, definitely. I can tell you. Yes. The first version we started to work on that, starting with the POC, because at that time was the time on which we started to move from on-premise product to the modern cloud platform, cloud native platform that we have nowadays. And indeed, we started from the beginning. I remember myself and my team working and finding some bugs and reporting to the community. I think it was you, Ivan, and I think Alvaro as well at that time in the chat. Hey guys, please report an issue in GitHub, and you apply the patch. We get the bug and we solve the situation. Very, very smooth, by the way. So congratulations for that, by the way, about the community that you have.
That's great to hear. So you mentioned before, like, for the POC, you were looking for a framework to build microservices. Is that the kind of architecture that you are following, like microservices architecture?
Exactly that. What we have is a streaming-based platform on top of, let's say, with a microservice architecture in mind, meaning that we are using Kafka's technology, and on top of that, we have a set of actually a huge amount of microservices. I can tell you today I counted around almost 200 microservices deployed. I can tell you 99% of them are Micronaut based microservices. So all of them, they are playing with the Java streams, with the Kafka streams, Kafka topics, some databases, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, we have many people that used Micronaut and Kafka, and we heard from them, especially initially when the framework was released. We heard a lot of people. We even have some. We saw that was being used. That we have even some archetypes when you go to launch.micronaut.io to generate like a Kafka consumer without even an HTTP server. So that's great to hear. Which modules are you using in those? Which features of Micronaut are you using in those microservices? You told me Kafka. Are you using Micronaut Kafka?
Yes, actually, we are using Micronaut Kafka. I can tell you is one of the most used plugins, integrations that we are using from Micronaut. For the production and consumer approaches is the one. I can tell you in the first version of the Micronaut, when we went to Kafka Streams, we had to go directly to the official SDK because some of the capabilities that the streams provided in the SDK were not available yet on the integration. But I can tell you Kafka is one of them. Of course, Micronaut Data, we were very happy when you released the Micronaut Data. We started using the GPA version of the Micronaut Data, But after we went to production, we faced some performance situations with the GPA, and we realized that the JDBC implementation for Micronaut data was the way to go. And actually, the performance was dramatically improved thanks to that.
Just as a small note for the audience is, because this is something sometimes a bit complicated to. So Micronaut data is kind of an umbrella of flavors, I like to say. So Micronaut data comes in different flavors. What Marcos was describing is we have Micronaut data JPA, which uses Hibernate under the hood. It allows you to work with a repository pattern, but you are working with Hibernate. If you need to get grab of an entity manager, you can do that. And it has the advantages and the disadvantages of working with Hibernate. We have another flavor, which is Micronaut data JDBC, where you don't have a Hibernate. You go more, so you are using JDBC, right? So it's a bit more raw. But thanks to the repository pattern, that what I tell people is don't be intimidated by using Micronaut data JDBC, because most of the time you are going to be writing the same repositories that you will write with Micronaut data JPA. And if you need to write like a native query, you can do it with add query. And especially for like read heavy applications, it's going to be extremely faster than Micronaut data JPA. We have other flavors. We have Micronaut data MongoDB, Micronaut data R2DBC, and we have also Micronaut data Cosmos DB, which actually is a feature of Micronaut 3.8. So if you are looking for working with a non-SQL database, but they still use some of the repository pattern capabilities, that's available for you. That's a great story about Micronaut data. Thanks for saying that. What else are you using? So Micronaut data, Micronaut Kafka?
Yeah, of course, modules about, observability. We are using Zipkin and Prometheus in order to spread the tracing and the metrics across the platform for the observability system that we have in place. For example, I can tell you nowadays we are trying to move to start using the Kubernetes integration that Micronaut has nowadays. We have started with the official SDK. I can tell you why. Because at the beginning was like, let's say, pretty straightforward. It's true that the SDKs nowadays are very advanced, so the onboarding of that is very straightforward. However, we want to, reduce a little bit the delta, the scope of the amount of technologies that we have. So we will try to start relying on the integration about Kubernetes. Also, for example, we are using the integration with Lambdas, Amazon Web Services Lambdas. We have we are starting a little bit on that, creating small Lambdas with Micronaut. It's working well, I can tell you from the experience that we got. And basically that's in terms of modules that we are using.
Kafka, data, Zipkin, Prometheus. How are you securing the microservices? Are you using Micronaut Security, or are you?
In this case, what we are doing, we are using part of the Micronaut Security, because as you probably can imagine, the microservices that we are deploying in Kubernetes, we have let's say a custom Docker image. Okay, mm-hmm. In that custom Docker image, we have a set of security measures, libraries, custom libraries, and so on and so forth. That's the case for the security. We have our own system for security and authorization, and we are relying on those libraries that we are building.
You are deploying to AWS based on what you said, right?
Correct. It's the platform, it's the cloud provider that we are using nowadays. We are very happy, actually. It's very suitable for what we have. And putting more numbers, just in case the audience is interested, as I mentioned before, we have around 200 microservices, and we are playing with at least 10 regions across the world.
Nice.
So I can tell you Nexthink could be seen as a big player in terms of Micronaut onboarding.
Absolutely, yeah. So one of the goals for this year is to have people, not just the people like in the core development team talking about Micronaut, but people actually using Micronaut for real.
Yeah.
Which are the more interesting people in the podcast. And that's why I wanted to talk to you. We have heard about many big companies and many big deployments. Yours is one pretty big, I have to say. But yeah, it's great to hear people like using the framework for real. So are you using Amazon Elastic Kubernetes Service AKS?
Yes, exactly that.
Are you sending emails? Does your product send emails?
Oh, that's very good question. I remember a feature that we had. We started, I think it was in 2020, that we started to use this Amazon simple email
service.
Exactly. I don't know if we are still using that, and I can tell you we struggle a little bit with that, but I don't remember right now if it's still ongoing.
Yeah. For those who have the need of sending emails from the application, and who doesn't, we have like a module called Micronaut Email, which integrates with Amazon email service, but with other transactional email providers. So if you want to integrate with simple email service, with Postmark, SendGrid, Mailjet, and if you want to send emails using Java Mail and use, for example, your Gmail account, we support that. What we do provide for companies or for developers is like an easy API. So you just basically, it has like a fluid API, like as you can imagine, like email to subject content. We support attachments as well. And typically what you have to do is like just add configuration for this integration. So if you are like using simple email service, you either have to have like an access key and access secret key or be deployed in an instance which has an IMN role, which allows you to send an email. Or if you are using Mailjet, you probably need like the API key available. And another nice feature that we support is often when you send transactional emails, they have like an HTML template, right? Where it has maybe the logo of the company and some colors and structure. We integrate with Micronaut views. So you could have like the template with your favorite template rendering engine. So if you want to have like a template built with Timeleaf or with handlebars or something like that, you can use that in combination with Micronaut Email. Same way as you will like render an HTML page. If you have worked with HTML emails, you know that they are ugly. So anything that you can do to streamline that process of filling those templates, that's a nice one. How are you deploying those microservices? So you tell me like to Kubernetes, are you deploying like Java applications? Are you using GraalVM?
That's an interesting topic. Yeah, we are deploying the microservices using the Terraform with Helm, because at the end of the day we build the Java, a jar. Of course, we deliver in Kubernetes, meaning a Docker image. On top of Kubernetes, we are using Helm, and using Terraform, we are able to deliver the Helm into the Amazon Web Services AKS. For that, in order to orchestrate all that, nowadays we are using Jenkins, which is, even though it is like very long and very known in the market for so long time, we know that there are other, let's say, more modern tools like Argo CD or even Flux for the entire cluster or something like that. But maybe in the future, nowadays we feel comfortable with Jenkins. We are exploring other possibilities with, as I said, more modern. But nowadays is very suitable for us.
If it works for you, that's the best reason to stay with a technology. If it works, it works.
Indeed.
What are your favorite features of the framework?
For me, one thing that I always like to highlight about Micronaut is we mentioned before, the easy path for the onboarding. I mean, it's very let's say intuitive to implement. Even though if you are coming from Spring or even you are not. Build a REST API is pretty simple. You have a controller, you have the service layer, you have the repository. 1, 2, 3 out of the box is pretty easy. Also in terms of the bootstrap, thanks to the commands that you provide in the official documentation and so on and so forth, having an application up and running with Netty and so on is pretty straightforward. So that ramp up, that onboarding for me is one of the things that I really loved as well. Also, the amount of integrations, and I can imagine, maybe you can tell me, Sergio, the amount of integrations that you have is very good for us, let's say, for the consumers of the framework. But I can imagine it's a huge challenge for you guys as core developers.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you is, as I said, sometimes we are not using it. Maybe that could be a good question, the why. But that's what I like to highlight about Micronaut. Maybe technically speaking, we can talk more. But for me, when you are in a company, what you want to have is something that works and works fast, and the onboarding for the people is like very very easy.
Yeah, agree. I always say, like, for me, my favorite feature is that it is fast, and that makes you. And I am not really preoccupied for like running fast on times of a startup in production, but in terms of writing tests.
Yeah.
So I think that the way that it starts fast, it makes people like write more tests. I see myself. I write many more functional tests than I used to.
Definitely.
So I barely write almost no unit tests nowadays. I almost write all my tests are like functional tests, and kind of gives you like a feeling of being more safe. Because you are like really testing your application from the outside and more thoroughly than...
That's pretty straightforward. Once again, either you are using JUnit or you are using a Spock framework, is very easy to use. So your coverage is let's say covered very very fast with that. And I want to answer as well your second question about GraalVM, because we recently have an experience with this. At Nexthink, we have every year what we call Innovathon. At the end of the day, it's a hackathon on which all the dev teams join together in order to innovate a little bit the product with very smart people and very imaginative solutions. One of those in this year, actually, I think was in December, was about, okay, we know that Micronaut out of the box is pretty fast, low footprint and this kind of stuff, which is a reality. And that's why also another reason because we chosen this technology. So we said, okay, but hey, GraalVM, that looks like pretty nice, solving even more problems in terms of a startup. Like, for example, okay, maybe we can use GraalVM for Lambdas because we need a quick startup. Also, why not as many as normal, let's say, microservices, because when you want to scale up, you want to be fast on that. The reality was that, and that was a surprise for us, when we run, I'm talking about GraalVM, let's say open source version, okay? Mm-hmm. When we run the GraalVM build, let's say in local, pure Java, indeed, that was super fast. And the footprint, once again, was super low. However, when we put that within the Kubernetes, we actually been very, very surprised that actually the performance was a bit different that expected, in the sense of kind of similar to a normal JVM Micronaut thingy. And I can tell you that in this exercise, what we did, actually, it was not me, was another team led by Pelayo Lartategui within the company, that there is like if I recall properly, there is like a tutorial about GraalVM, and put in your code this algorithm because it's suitable, and you will see the high performance of the GraalVM and so on and so forth. And actually, yes, running as a Java application, yes, work perfect and as expected, as I mentioned. But when you put it in Kubernetes, actually the performance was not like the one that expected. And that was interesting inside.
I don't know about the example. So Java, when you are running like long time applications, so it will get like a lot of performance, basically in JIT as well. With GraalVM, what we see is you're going to get lower memory consumption and much faster startup time. Mm-hmm. So, and sometimes those are really important for us, and GraalVM is the only place that allows you to go there, right? So if you are, for example, we were talking about Lambda, where you are going to have some cold startup scenarios, not many, but you are going to have some. Their startup time is crucial, right?
Absolutely.
And the Lambda is going to be turned down in 15 minutes. So so when you have like an application running 24/7, the startup time maybe is not as important for you. And what you care is about the longest standing performance. And in those scenarios, I think Java is quite capable of. GraalVM in those scenarios, I think, is going to bring you like a lower memory footprint as well.
Yeah.
When you combine both, then it's a killer feature. So when you combine like the requirement of having like the requirement for a really cold startup and a lower memory footprint, GraalVM is going to shine. But as you said, so try it for yourself, see if it works for your application requirements. The good news is Micronaut is really well suited for GraalVM because we avoid reflection like the plague. So it's not like GraalVM doesn't. So GraalVM works with reflection. You just have to whitelist your reflection usages. Whether you want to use Micronaut in your Java or with GraalVM, hopefully we will have you covered in both scenarios. I wanted to ask you, because I forgot, is so what are you using as, are you programming your Micronaut applications with Java, with Groovy, or with Kotlin?
That's a good one. Nowadays we are using Java. And I can tell you why, because some people, for example, start to say, hey, why we don't start with Kotlin, for example, this kind of stuff. And basically, this is kind of a governance decision because at the end of the day, in a company like Nexthink, that nowadays we are pretty close, I think, to 1,000 people. In engineering, we are a lot, actually. We have a huge and important number for the team, for the R&D department. The decision was, okay, let's try to be smart. At the end of the day, the experience is about Java. The people that can find in the market is about Java. So let's continue like that. It's not like Kotlin is not cool or is not suitable for the use cases, but let's say it's a decision that could bring more value for us.
Java has a good value for companies in the terms that, as you say, the workforce is wider and it is easier to hire Java developers out of the box without need to train them than Kotlin developers or Groovy developers. I hear you. Which Java version are you using?
That's a good one as well. Nowadays we are moving to the last one, 3.8. Even though, as I said, with the amount of microservices that we have, it's not easy to keep the pace that you guys have in the releases. I can tell you more or less we are between the last version of the 2.7, something like that, and we are starting with the 3. Something as well. So we are in transition. It's a bit we are not fast enough in terms of migrating to the latest versions.
I wanted to ask you a follow-up question to that, but which Java version are you using? Are you using 17, 11, 8?
Now we are moving to 17. We are basically in 11, and we are moving to 17.
This is a bit off topic, but what's the in such a? So you told me like you have like around 200 microservices. Are those microservices like? So is the responsibility of each of the developers of those microservices to upgrade to the latest versions of Micronaut and other transitive dependencies? Are all like updated? Are you saying like, okay, now we are going to update all the 200 to the new version, or is the upgrade path different between services?
I think we are working in agile teams, and every single team owns a set of microservices within the platform. Many of the times they are pretty related, and we have a focus on each team, meaning that unless some security problem comes, maybe you remember, I think was like 2 years ago, I think was about log
for you.
Exactly. That the security team comes, guys, we have to upgrade this like right now. Unless that, we try to keep the pace, let's say, team by team.
The last question that I have is, or a couple of questions is, what are you missing in the framework and what could we do better?
No, that's very good one. Even though, as I said about GraalVM, I wanted to remark that we are watching this technology. GraalVM, we are watching this technology. We really believe that is definitely part of the future of the technology, and also with the framework. In terms of what to improve, I can tell you that we are working very close with the documentation that you have nowadays. In that documentation, we can find a lot of information. Okay, how to set up the S3 Amazon S3 integration or something like that. And one thing that we realized that the amount of concrete examples, like, okay, you want to get a document from the S3 using this integration. Okay, how can we do that? Okay, if you don't have experience with the original or the source SDK, maybe you are not able to figure it out how to do it with the integration from Micronaut. If you do, maybe yes. But those concrete examples, I think, is something that could be useful for the community to have in the official documentation as well.
The way that I want to solve this issue is, so we have two documentation. Typically have like two documentations. One is what we call the reference documentation. So if you go to docs.micronaut.io and you go to AWS, we have like Micronaut AWS integration documentation. And you are going to find that section there for S3.
Mm-hmm.
But for tutorials, we have like these guides.micronaut.io.
Correct.
And the issue that we have is that we are not cross-linking as well as we should from each other. So if you go to the S3, for example, you should see like examples. We have like, for example, like a guide to use object storage with S3.
True.
We have like another one to show like use like S3 with Lambda.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is I know that those guides exist because I maybe read them or write them or review them.
Yeah.
But normal users don't, and I understand them. And we have like more than 100 guides and a lot of modules. So kind of allowing users to discover the information that exists is key for us. And what you said is completely true. We have to create like tutorials, especially for the simple things that people are going to do in the day-to-day. But yeah, I think the solution for us should be like, so we have this infrastructure called Micronaut Guides, which are tutorials with downloadable solutions. So this is like a code that you can download and check, and maybe even use some parts of the code in your project. But we have to make those guides discoverable.
You know, Sergio, one interesting thing from my experience with the documentation from Micronaut, again, I think you have a great documentation. The reference, I think, is great. And the examples, I find useful as well. I can tell you for some technologies that I was not used to use, the guide that you provide was enough. In other situations, we saw that more complex examples would be useful as well. For example, I remember myself when I mentioned before, moving from GPA to GDBC using the Micronaut data, more advanced examples maybe could be useful for the community because from my experience, people that is getting or start using Micronaut, they probably have experience already with other frameworks. So, okay, I know how to do the basics. Give me something more advanced. Maybe is something to consider as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We did a micro data training past year, and I got that feedback. Like we have to do like more advanced training as well. So I think we have to do both.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think at the end of the day, we have to do assuming that some people are gonna come into the framework without any background on JVM frameworks, and for those people, we have to guide them step by step. Don't assume like they are used to dependency injection and things like that. And for others, as you say, where we have modules which are quite powerful, like microdata or microsecurity, we have to explain because sometimes, so in many of those frameworks, we have to be quite flexible, right? Because each company uses microsecurity in a different way. So you have to provide some defaults, but also like be flexible enough to allow you to write your own, because it's impossible to like cater to every use case. But yeah, I agree. I think we have to do both. I think that's great feedback, that we have to like improve the advanced documentation as well.
The basic examples are great, I can tell you. And from here, I would like to recommend the listeners, the audience of this podcast, to use these guidelines that Micronaut provides. I really see it very useful, for example, in the onboarding. In the onboarding plan that I have for my teams, we have the links to your documentation about how to do the hello world for gRPC, the hello world for the GraphQL, this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please, if you are like starting to Micronaut, go to, or if you are like already like a Micronaut user, go to guide.micronaut.io. We, for example, recently published a guide that has been a long time on draft, but is now published this microdata with R2DBC, which is quite exciting, and we have many users using that technology. You can have like a pure reactive application if that's what you are looking for, with Micronaut from the controller layer until the persistent layer. So we have integration with Microdata R2DBC, but also with Microdata Hibernate Reactive as well. So yeah, that's great feedback, Marcos. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about before we wrap the podcast?
No, I think that's all, Sergio. As I said before, Nexthink is playing hard with the Micronaut. We are providing feedback in the community when we find bugs, which is not common, by the way. We talk to you guys in the community, and so far I can tell you we are using Micronaut from more than 3 years, and I think it's a good thing. It's something technology that definitely brings value to us.
Thank you. I appreciate it a lot. I would like to thank everyone for listening to the episode, but before we wrap up, I'm gonna thank the sponsors. I would like to thank the Micronaut Foundation's sponsors. So I would like to thank our corporate sponsors, Object Computing, Staffree.net, Oracle, which is our engineering partner, -Q, JetBrains, and Gradle for providing us Gradle Enterprise. And I am forgetting some sponsors, so let me pull the MicroStream, which is our silver sponsors. And we have a great integration with MicroStream to do like persistence staying in Java. Quite exciting. Visor Games also, we have, I mean, it shouldn't be surprising, but it's always surprising to me. Games companies, the game industry is huge. And as you can imagine, whenever we play a game, there is like a backend server, like which has your profiles and all of those. And we have seen many games companies using Micronaut as their framework of choice for the backends. And Visor Game is one of those companies, and they are a sponsor of the foundation. So many thanks to all of the sponsors of the foundation. And many thanks also to the community sponsors. Without you, the development and the advocacy of the framework will not be possible. So thanks to all of you. And thanks again, Marcos, for taking the time to be with me today.
Sure.
Keep listening to the podcast and keep using Micronaut. Thank you.
Thank you.